Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge, text number 24. Aham hi sarva jagyanam bhokta cha prabhur eva cha natu mam abhijananti tadvena tasyayanti te. Aham hi sarva jagyanam bhokta cha prabhur eva cha natu mam abhijananti tadvena tasyayanti te.
Aham hi sarva yagyanam
bhokta cha prabhureva cha natu mam abhijananti tadvena tasyayanti te. Aham hi sarva yagyanam bhokta cha prabhureva cha natu mam abhijananti tadvena tasyayanti te. Aham hi sarva yagyanam bhokta cha prabhureva cha natu mam abhijananti tadvena tasyayanti te. Aham hi sarva jagnanam bhokta cha prabhureva cha natu mam abhijananti tadvena tasyayanti te. Aham hi sarva yagyanam bhokta cha prabhureva cha natu mam abhijananti tadvena tasyayanti te. Aham, I, he, surely, sarva, of all, yagyanam, sacrifices, bhokta, the enjoyer, cha, and prabhu, the Lord, eva, also, cha, and not, to, but, mam, me, abhijananti, they know, tadvena, in reality, ataha, therefore, chaivanti, fall down, te, they. I am the only enjoyer and the master of all sacrifices. Therefore, those who do not recognize my true transcendental nature fall down. Purport. Here is clearly stated that there are many types of yajna performances recommended in the Vedic literatures, but actually all of them are meant for satisfying the Supreme Lord. Yajna means Vishnu. In the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that one should only work for satisfying yajna or Vishnu. The perfectional form of human civilization, known as Varnashram Dharma, is specifically meant for satisfying Vishnu. Therefore, Krishna says in this verse, I am the enjoyer of all sacrifices because I am the Supreme Master. Less intelligent persons, however, without knowing this fact, worship demigods for temporary benefit. Therefore, they fall down to material existence and do not achieve the desired goal of life. If, however, anyone has any material desire to be fulfilled, he had better pray for it to the Supreme Lord, although that is not a pure devotion, and he will thus achieve the desired result. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Aham hi sarva yagyagnam bhokta cha prabhur eva cha itumam abhijananti tat vena taschiyanti te. I am the only enjoyer and the master of all sacrifices. Therefore, those who do not recognize my true transcendental nature fall down. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Satarane. Bhagavad Gita only has actually two principal themes and one other theme, some other themes. Two principal themes are that we're all eternal and that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we know that, those two things, then we know everything. But obviously it's not so easy to understand either one of them. Therefore, we have to know a few other things. The other thing is that Krishna is the proprietor, Krishna is the enjoyer, and Krishna is the friend of everyone. So those three things will help us understand Krishna. But it's not so easy to understand those three things. So therefore, Krishna spoke the whole Bhagavad Gita. But it's not so easy to understand Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, Krishna gave us Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's not so easy to understand Srimad Bhagavatam. And therefore, Krishnadas Kaviraj gave us Chaitanya Charitamrita. And if we can't understand that, then good luck. And we won't understand. And there are many people, they can't understand at all, as Krishna says. Nor do they want to understand. Because if you go to a jailhouse, if you go to prison, it's not that every prisoner wants to become reformed. Matter of fact, the vast majority of the prisoners are there to stay there. And if they get out of jail, their only ambition is to get back in jail eventually. Of course, they may not want to go to jail, but by their activities, they're destined to go back to jail again. So the question is, what is actually Krishna saying? I mean, is it just, Krishna is just declaring that I'm the enjoyer, anyone who doesn't accept that, they fall down? Then we have to look at it objectively. Like, for instance, is it true when Krishna says that we're not this body, that our bodies are changing? Now, I think all of us will agree, reluctantly, that our bodies are changing. We don't like it, so we don't think about it most of the time. Yeah, it's changing, but very so small, it's practically nothing. I'm going to be here for a long, long, long time. Don't worry. And then, all right, so my body may be changing, but who knows who I am? Well, Krishna says he knows who you are. You're a person who doesn't change. And therefore, it requires some intelligence to see that we've had so many different bodies, and yet still I'm here. I haven't disappeared, although all these bodies have disappeared. So the conclusion is, when this body completely disappears, I'm not going to disappear because all my other bodies completely disappeared already, and I'm still here. Now, that simple fact is extremely difficult to understand if you don't have a brain, and people don't have a brain. So therefore, it's extremely difficult to understand because Prabhupada said, they're accusing us of brainwashing, but it's not a fact because people don't have a brain to wash. And even if they had a brain to wash, their brain is probably made out of cow dung. So the more you wash it, it doesn't make any difference. Now, we don't say everyone doesn't have a brain because Chaitanya, it says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna Varnam Tusa Krishna, Sango Pangasya Parshadam, Yagyai Sankirtana Praya, Yantihi Sumedasa, that those who have some brain, that they'll chant Hare Krishna. So that's how we see if anyone has a brain or not, whether they can understand even the most obvious fact to the soul. There's nothing more obvious to ourselves than the fact that our body's changing, but we're not changing. Now, anyone who doesn't think that they're not changing, it's a waste of time talking to them about anything else. Because if they actually believe they're changing, I mean, what kind of consciousness do they have? What are they thinking? And if they refuse to accept that changes the body actually makes, and that there's a final change called death, which is really not different from the other changes of the body, then it's very difficult to convince them of anything. Now, the second thing is that there is a God. Now, if there's not a God and everything came out of nothing, then it was a pretty good nothing. It was a very intelligent nothing. To put planets in their orbits exactly on time. I mean, it was really carefully thought out by nothing. Because supposedly we're something, we have intelligence, but we can't do anything. But nothing did everything. Now, if you can accept that, which is what people have been trained to accept, then it's a fact. People start out with little intelligence, and whatever little intelligence they have was stolen. And if someone comes along and tells them that you're eternal, they'll feel threatened by it. How dare you tell me I'm not this body? You're envious of my body. How dare you tell me that there's a God apart from me? In other words, previously there was one Hiranyakashipu with a number of followers, and now there's a lot more Hiranyakashipus, little Hiranyakashipus. Now, luckily, by the chanting, if we can get people to chant Hare Krishna, then they might be able to understand the most basic things. For instance, that we're not this body. And that in order to understand this body, they have to follow certain principles. They have to come to the platform of goodness. They have to become a little introspective. That there are certain activities that put us into ignorance. Now, people don't notice that they're in ignorance. That means that they're in ignorance. In other words, they're so dull, they don't even know they're in ignorance. They think they're in knowledge. If anyone thinks that by killing animals, that you can actually develop a higher consciousness, in spite of the fact that you're killing animals, having illicit sex, eating, taking intoxication, and gambling, speculating. If you think that that's completely helpful, that you understand things better. If you go on the internet, there's one person on the advertisements, YouTube advertisement. He keeps on coming on because I watch some YouTubes about health, and he's on all of them. Maybe I watch like once a day for half an hour some health channel, and he comes on every time talking about something called ayahuasca or something. You heard of ayahuasca? Yeah, shaman. Some, mescaline or whatever, LSD type of thing. And he's just glorifying how you get into higher consciousness like that. Now, I had a lot of friends before I joined the movement, even before I was in college, in high school, when they started to experiment with these drugs. And believe me, they were not getting into higher consciousness. They became more and more insane. So this idea that ayahuasca, whatever it was, is going to bring you to higher consciousness, it means that they're in such low consciousness. I mean, I'm sure it gives you hallucinations. And that in that hallucination, you realize that you don't know what's going on. But you know less about what's going on when you come down from the whole thing. You don't know anymore. All you know is that you don't know what's going on. But then you think in your hallucinations, you actually found out what was going on. But that's not reality either. So you've transferred one state of ignorance to another state of ignorance, which is even more ignorant. And they have no idea. No, I never heard of anyone taking these drugs realize that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God and that we should surrender to him. And even if they take the drug, they realize they're not their body, they still act like a body. that they were the body. Therefore, anyone, as Prabhupada was telling Professor Kotatsky at the University of Moscow, he couldn't understand anything about how we're not this body, or anything about the fact that there could be a God. It was just like, completely, he was in another world for him. Didn't exist, that world. And when Prabhupada talked about making a first-class man, then immediately objected. No, that's not, society, we're an equal society. All the animals are equal, but the pigs are more equal than everyone else. So that's their philosophy. It's all, everyone's the same, but there are some people more same than the others. And therefore, the idea of developing the qualities of goodness so you can see things properly is completely beyond their conception. If you tell them, of course, some people, for instance, they decide, let me stop, say meat eating. They become fanatical, Even if you drink milk of a cow, you're killing the cow. You're equal to the person who's slaughtering the cow if you drink milk. Of course, they don't drink milk, and therefore, according to Prabhupada, they don't develop higher brain tissues to understand the value of drinking milk. In any case, they don't drink milk, but many of them, they don't mind illicit sex. They don't mind killing their child in the womb. So they're completely against animal killing, but killing people, what to do. They get in your way, you just take care of them. Besides that, they're not alive. They may look like they're alive, they may scream and things like that, but that's just air coming out. So people have lost the sense of developing higher consciousness. Out of mercy, austerity, cleanliness, and truthfulness, the only leg left was truthfulness. But people don't believe in truthfulness anymore. If you tell the truth, then you're considered to be a threat to society. People don't want to hear the truth because it may interfere with their sense gratification. They want to believe they can do whatever they want, and the scientists will come along with some drug or vaccine or something and completely neutralize all their sinful activities. They'll be able to go and enjoy again. So they want to believe like that. And even though they watch people suffer and die, whatever else, it's not happening because it's going to interfere with my conception of life, that I could stay here in the material world and enjoy, and I won't have to suffer reactions because the scientists will save me. So even they're watching, just like a goat, he's on the slaughterhouse, he's watching the other goats going into the slaughterhouse, he's going to go next, but he's just eating the grass underneath his feet because he can't understand what's going on. He doesn't want to understand what's going on. So for those who want to understand, there are some basic things like there are activities that either increase our consciousness or degrade our consciousness. And when our consciousness is more clear, is more pure, then we can see things as they actually are, rather than our prejudice or the way we think they should be. Like I think I should be God, I should be the enjoyer, I should be the controller, and therefore it doesn't matter what happens, I'm going to try to do that up until the end of my life. No matter what experience I have, no matter what experience other people have, I'm just going to hear from people who are going to support my vision that I'm going to enjoy, I'm going to control, and I'm going to be the savior of everyone, of some part of existence. I'm going to go down as the savior of someone. And anyone who opposes that and presents anything different, like you're not this body, there's a God called Krishna, there's a process of developing higher consciousness, understanding, they won't hear it. They don't want to hear it. And there's some people who want to hear it because the material nature will pressure them in order to come to the platform that they'll want to hear it, any alternative. And they'll develop some brains and they'll make some progress. And they'll be able to understand the simple things like the difference between the soul and the body, and the difference between ourselves and the material nature that's controlling us. When material nature says sleep, we don't say, no, forget it, I don't feel like sleep. I'm the controller. No, we go to sleep. When the material nature says eat, we don't say, I don't feel like eating for a couple of weeks. No. Yeah, you could say like that, but material nature will convince you eventually. It's about time to eat. Material nature says it's time to go to the toilet, and I say, no, I don't want to go to the toilet. You're going to go to the toilet. One place or another. You just have a choice where it's going to happen, that's all. So we may imagine, yes, I'm the controller, I'm controlling the whole universe. No one's controlling me. But we can see people have been reduced, to the position where sometimes they can't even go out of their own house. Prabhupada gives the example, you're in the prison, you have to find the government, the guards have you strapped down, you can't even move, and all you're doing is you're cursing the guards as they're slapping you, saying, I'm independent, I don't listen to anyone. You may proclaim like that as they're slapping you, but what is the value of your so-called proclamation of independence? It has no value, simply putting you into a position of greater suffering. If you just shut up, they may stop slapping you. So similar to the material nature, everyone's trying to declare themselves free, independent, they can do whatever they want. There's no such thing as reincarnation. There's no such thing as karma. There's no such thing as God. There's no such thing as Bhagavad Gita, just a fantasy story. As Prabhupada said, one doctor said it was a dialogue between a patient and his doctor. They can come up with anything because and Pashana Pina Pashati. But again, as I said, Bhagavad Gita is actually quite simple. If we just meditate upon the fact that the difference between our bodies and ourselves, we just think about how there's a Paramatma in our heart, giving us remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, how the whole universe we can see is controlled by higher intelligence. The only thing that's not controlled by higher intelligence is all these so-called learned scholars who are all controlled by lower intelligence. Or as I said before, the only real void in this universe is between the heads, between the ears of these so-called philosophers and scientists. But the actual reality is there in Bhagavad Gita, and a person who's a little thoughtful, a little brain substance will be able to pick it up and understand. There is a process to go forward to see what Bhagavad Gita is saying, and it's for our benefit. To realize we're eternal, everyone's trying to avoid death, but that's not possible for this body, but it is for the soul. The soul transmigrating from one body to another and being in a state of ignorance, that is death. But we can actually get out of death if we become Krishna conscious. Otherwise, there's no other remedy. So Prabhupada said, I actually have the solution for death. The problem is who's going to take it. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for your class. When you mentioned this intoxication and not using a brain, I remember one very inspiring example from one Srila Prabhupada's disciples. She used to take these drugs, heavy drugs, LSD, and reading Bhagavad Gita. And then she met Srila Prabhupada, and she explained to Prabhupada, like, I'm using these drugs, this LSD, and then I'm getting visions. I'm seeing Krishna while I'm doing this, while I'm taking these heavy drugs. And then Prabhupada told her, no, it's not because of you, you are taking these drugs. You are seeing Krishna because you love Krishna and Krishna loves you. And then Prabhupada helps you overcome her these shortcomings. And then she said how Prabhupada really, how compassionate he was. And then today I also heard one very nice class on Advaita Acharya Appearance Day, and also that one of qualification of Sri Advaita Acharya is compassion. So I would like to ask you if you can just also tell something about this quality of Advaita Acharya, and the compassionate quality of Advaita Acharya.
Well, as Chandramali Maharaj said today, Advaita Acharya was so frustrated he was going to take his chakra and kill everyone. So luckily he didn't do it, so we're still here. So that shows his compassion. I remember one time Vishnu Jai Maharaj, 67 or something, he told Prabhupada, whenever I chant Hare Krishna, I see all these visions coming. You know, so Prabhupada said, just keep on chanting and they'll go away. Advaita Acharya, his compassion is he created the universe so we can play around here and eventually, get smashed by the material nature, so we go crawling back to Krishna. That's his compassion. If he created a world where there was no birth and death, and all you had was sense gratification, it would be a very horrible existence. No possibility of going back to the spiritual world again. We'd be here actually forever. So he created a world where we get our free will, at the same time an opportunity to make progress if we want, go back to the spiritual kingdom. Anything else? All right, thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande.